When people hear the phrase data classification, it can sound like a paperwork exercise designed mainly for compliance audits. But in reality, classification is one of the most practical tools for protecting information. In this episode, we focus on classifying data in practice, which means defining sensitivity tiers that reflect real risk, creating handling rules that guide everyday behavior, and planning for the real-world exceptions that inevitably arise. Classification is not about labeling everything for the sake of formality. It is about making clear decisions about which information matters most and how it should be treated. When done thoughtfully, classification helps organizations apply protection proportionally instead of guessing or overprotecting everything. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. At its core, data classification answers a simple but powerful question. How bad would it be if this information were exposed, altered, or lost? Some data, such as publicly available marketing materials, may carry little risk if shared widely. Other data, such as customer financial records, personal identifiers, proprietary research, or security credentials, could cause significant harm if mishandled. Sensitivity tiers provide a structured way to group information based on impact. Rather than evaluating each document individually from scratch, tiers allow consistent treatment across similar types of data. Most classification models include multiple tiers, often ranging from public or low sensitivity to highly restricted or confidential. The names may differ between organizations, but the concept remains the same. Higher tiers represent greater potential harm. Public data is typically intended for broad distribution and requires minimal restriction. Internal data may be limited to employees, but not catastrophic if disclosed accidentally. Confidential or restricted data may require strict access controls and encryption because exposure would cause financial, legal, or reputational damage. The tiers create a shared language that guides protective decisions. Creating effective sensitivity tiers requires clarity and alignment with business reality. If tiers are defined too vaguely, employees will struggle to apply them consistently. If tiers are too numerous or complex, classification becomes confusing and ignored. Practical classification schemes balance simplicity with meaningful differentiation. They should clearly describe examples of each category so that employees can recognize where a document or dataset belongs. Clear definitions prevent misclassification and inconsistent treatment. Handling rules translate classification tiers into concrete actions. It is not enough to label data as confidential. There must be rules about storage, transmission, and sharing. For example, higher-tier data may require encryption in transit and at rest, restricted access groups, and monitoring for unusual access patterns. Lower-tier data may be shared more freely but still require basic safeguards. Handling rules make classification actionable rather than symbolic. Access control is one of the most important handling rules associated with classification. Higher sensitivity data should only be accessible to those who genuinely need it to perform their roles. This principle of least privilege reduces exposure and limits the impact of compromised accounts. Clear mapping between roles and data categories simplifies enforcement. When classification aligns with access control, risk is reduced systematically rather than reactively. Storage considerations also vary by classification tier. Sensitive data may need to reside in controlled repositories rather than on local devices or personal storage accounts. Backup strategies must reflect sensitivity, ensuring that protected data is recoverable but not exposed during recovery processes. Cloud storage configurations should align with classification requirements to prevent accidental public exposure. Consistent storage rules prevent fragmentation of protection practices. Transmission rules further reinforce classification boundaries. Sensitive information should not be transmitted through unsecured channels or shared via informal messaging platforms. Secure communication pathways ensure that interception risk is minimized. Automated controls can help enforce transmission rules by detecting and blocking inappropriate sharing attempts. When transmission policies are aligned with classification tiers, exposure risk decreases significantly. Monitoring and auditing play a critical role in maintaining classification effectiveness. Logging access to higher-tier data allows detection of unusual or unauthorized behavior. Alerts tied to sensitive data access can provide early warning of compromise. Monitoring ensures that classification is not merely a label, but part of an enforceable control framework. Visibility reinforces accountability. Real-world exceptions inevitably arise, and practical classification systems must accommodate them without collapsing into chaos. For example, urgent collaboration may require temporary access to sensitive data outside normal boundaries. Regulatory obligations may require sharing certain information under defined conditions. Planning for exceptions means defining approval processes and documentation requirements in advance. Structured exception handling prevents ad hoc decisions that weaken overall protection. Overclassification is a common pitfall that can undermine the entire program. If too much data is labeled at the highest sensitivity level, users may begin to ignore labels because they seem excessive. Overclassification also increases operational burden unnecessarily. Effective programs encourage thoughtful classification rather than automatic assignment of the highest tier. Proportional protection maintains credibility and efficiency. Training supports consistent application of classification rules. Employees must understand how to identify data types and what handling rules apply. Training should use realistic examples rather than abstract definitions. Clear guidance reduces uncertainty and increases compliance. Education strengthens the human side of data protection. Automation can assist classification by scanning content for patterns such as personal identifiers or financial information. Automated tagging reduces manual workload and improves consistency. However, automation should be reviewed periodically to ensure accuracy and avoid misclassification. Human oversight complements automated detection. Classification also supports incident response by clarifying impact quickly. When a potential breach occurs, knowing the classification of affected data helps determine severity and response urgency. High-sensitivity data exposures require rapid escalation and possibly external notification. Lower-tier exposures may require containment but less dramatic action. Classification accelerates decision-making under pressure. Ultimately, classifying data in practice is about making risk visible and manageable. Sensitivity tiers provide structure. Handling rules translate structure into action, and planned exception processes preserve flexibility without sacrificing control. When classification aligns with real business needs and is supported by clear guidance and monitoring, it becomes a powerful tool for reducing data-related risk. Over time, disciplined classification ensures that the most valuable information receives the strongest protection, creating a resilient and proportionate security posture.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.